Microsoft Word 2003, formatting tabs and columns. Tabs and columns, two areas that we're going to find don't really have a home in paragraph formatting or page formatting or even character formatting. They're kind of their own little animals. They kind of go between the areas. And so we want to concentrate on these two in this video. Here in this video, we're going to take a look at two areas that we format. They're very closely related to paragraphs, but they have a little bit different. Tabs, of course, being closer to the paragraphs because you use tab stops within paragraphs. Columns, though, kind of their own little animal. The ability to take text, a body of text, and give it its own margins and separate them on the page. So you can have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, and each one can have different margins and settings set for them. First, we're going to take a look at tabs and what they are. Now, many of you might be going, really, what is a tab? Now, I know I can look at my keyboard. In fact, look at your keyboard right now. See that tab key? Have you ever wondered why they have a tab key there? Well, besides obviously to tab from one field to another, maybe on a web page or on a database, but tabs actually are designed, if you remember back in the days where we just had typewriters, it was a location across the page that you used to align text, either to the left or to the center or to the right. And so these are the different types of tabs that we have. Now, tabs, by default, you actually have them installed here on your Word 2003. There's these little gray areas, little lines, I should say, not arrows, up here on the top of your ruler. And all this is a place where if I hit the tab key, it moves and it jumps and aligns my text up to that particular tab stop. And that's what we call them, tab stops. So right now, these are set for, I think, about a ½ inch or every ½ inch across your page. And all you need to do is if I want to type something, like, let's say I don't want to type a tab here. So I come down here, and I decide to say, to contact any of our sales staff, feel free to call. And enter their extension. And now I'll hit enter. Now, of course, I can start off with Bob. Bob's a good guy. Now, I want to go ahead and put not only Bob here, but maybe I want to put Veronica, maybe I want to put James, maybe I want to put Jeremy over here because I have all kinds of sales staff, and I want to make sure that it aligns up underneath with their telephone number. So I'm going to say Bob, and I'm going to hit tab twice. And so that way I know it's 2 tabs over. I'll put Veronica, tab over twice, James, tab over twice, and then Jeremy. So these are my 4 individuals that I have that I want to be able to have their phone numbers underneath. So when I hit enter, I can now type in extension 45614. Tab over twice, and look, it matches up and aligns with that next tab location, and I can say 4566, tab. Well, I'm still not aligned up, so I need to tab over one more time to get to James here, and then I can say 4567, and then Jeremy 4568. So now Bob's extension is lined up with him, Veronica's extension is lined up with her, and James and Jeremy's as well. So that's what tabs can do for me when I'm formatting for my paragraphs. But do I always want them a ½ inch apart across the top? More than likely not. Now, you probably have been wondering, because we haven't really talked about it yet, but what is this thing over here in the corner? Well, believe it or not, that is our custom tab button. Our custom tab button allows us to create different types of tabs. I bet you didn't know that there were different types of tabs. Yes, there are. There are left tabs, center tabs, right tabs, decimal tabs, and even bar tabs. Okay, I know a lot of people say a bar tab. Does that mean I can go into the local saloon and put some stuff on my tab? No, a bar tab is a vertical bar, which is the length of the paragraph containing that insertion point. In other words, between any time you hit tab, it'll put a line in between. So that's what they call it, a bar tab. Now, all I need to do is click through these, and you can see I can even insert my indents there. But see the little L? Think of the L as the left tab. Now this aligns the left end of the text with the stop. So right now this is what I have. I have a left alignment right here. The upside down T is a center tab. That means it's going to align the center of the text with the stop. So in other words, the 4566 and Veronica would line up in a center location. So it's almost like having the alignment only at your tab stop. Kind of cool. A right tab, click this again. This is the right end of the text. So in other words, I want the 4568 to line up to the end of the tab and Jeremy to line up to the end of the tab. So that would be the right tab. The decimal tab, this one looks familiar. It looks like the upside down T, which is a center tab. Well, this one will align the decimal point. This one's really cool. This is the one you want to use when you're doing finance type of stuff, where you're adding up maybe some numbers. So, for example, let me go ahead and hit enter, and I want to create. And let me show you. And I'll just show you this here. I'm going to take and drag. Oop, I forgot. Let me click through them. You click once you've clicked and selected on it. You can select anywhere in here where you want to place this particular tab. So if I want to put one here, it immediately puts one there. And notice it clears any of the default tabs to the left of it. It keeps them over here, but anything to the left of that will be cleared out. So now when I type in a tab, notice it'll do that, and it's a decimal tab. So if I say 1236 and I hit enter and I tab over and I do 122.45, notice how it aligns my tab onto this decimal point. That's what makes this one very cool. I use this whenever I'm, putting together invoices, because now I know my dollar amounts will align up no matter what when I use this decimal tab. It's just again the upside down T with a decimal point. The bar tab, and I'll show you that one. If I add one of these, let's go ahead and add one over here. Notice again to the left, except for your custom tabs, all default tabs are cleared out. So now, if I tab over, you'll notice it puts a bar right there. Pretty cool stuff. And so you can tab over if you need to, and it adds that bar, a line in the sand that you can put text to the either side of. So these are kind of fun. So let me go ahead and undo my bar tabs. And so, yeah, don't we wish we could do that in the real world? Here we can see that tabs are obviously another way that we can format our paragraphs. Now, what if I want to do this a little bit differently? Because what if I want to move this tab? Can I do that? You bet. All you need to do is click on it, hold it, and move it to wherever you want it to be. Let's move it back over here. And see, on this paragraph, because this is a separate paragraph, how do I know that? Click the show. See? And notice it gives me now my tab. Anytime I hit the tab, it shows what I did. And this is my end of my paragraph here. So now I can hide this. That's a separate paragraph. I can come over here and move it as well. So now it lines up perfectly. So we can use this, again, for just about any purpose you can think of in the sense of utilizing tabs. Now, is this it? No way. We can also go in and we can customize our tabs using the tab dialog box. So what's really cool is we can come up here to our format, tabs, and when we click on this, we get our tabs dialog box. Now I'm going to move it over here just a little bit so we can see everything that we're doing here. And again, this allows us to fine-tune the position of the tab stops, and we can also use tab leaders, which are those visible marks like dots or dashes that'll connect the text before the tab with the text after it. And this just makes it really good. So you can see your leaders down here. You have none, you can use dots, dashes, or clear underline all the way through. Now the other thing you can do, notice it says your default tab stops right here on Bob are set at half inch. You can clear the tab stops if you have them, you put it into place, as well as how are the alignment. Remember we said you have your left, your center, your right, your decimal, and your bar. The same thing that you see up here. So now what you have is not only the ability to click and drag it and eyeball it, you can actually go in here and put the exact places that you want it to be. So if you want to change one of these tab stops, let me cancel out of here. We have custom tab stops right in this one. Here's my custom decimal one. So now any paragraph that I'm in, I can click on Format, Tabs, and now you'll notice it says there's a tab stop position at 1 inch, and the default tab stops are at half inch. So you still have these default ones every ½ inch, but then you have this custom one that we placed. And we only have one custom, and it's right here. If I had more, it would list them all. You can select on the one, and you can clear it. Very simple. If I clear it, watch what happens. It says, okay, you no longer have that tab stop. You click OK, and watch what it does. It takes my custom tab stop, completely removes it, and it goes back to my defaults. And so that's how you can clear out your tab stops. Now, if I had more than one, so let's go ahead and add a more than one here. So let's go to just your regular tab stop. Let's say I added a left tab stop right here at the 1 inch mark. And let's say I want to add a decimal one over here at the 2 inch mark. So grab this one, click there. Okay, so now I've got two different tab stops here in this particular paragraph. We've got the left one, there's my left bar, and here's my decimal one. Come up again here to Format, click Tabs, and now look, it says you've got one at 1 inch, you've got one at 2 inches. And each one, if you click on it, it shows the type it is. This is a decimal one. The one at 1 inch is a left hand. There's no leader on it. So if I go to the 2 inch and I say I want to add a leader to it, I can do that. I can also take and change what the default tab stops are. Maybe I don't want all my default tab stops to be ½ inches. Maybe I want them to be 1.2 is what I want my default tab stops to be. Not a problem. So I simply click OK, and now I've changed the look and feel of my thing. Notice how my default on the whole page has changed now to 1.2. So Bob and Veronica, James and Jeremy, those have all changed, as well as all the custom things that I've done. So if I'm doing tab stop, see I did the tab, and I got my leader that I said I wanted on this particular one. If I want to change it back, all I merely need to do is click on the format, the tabs, and say, you know what? I want my default tab stops to go back to ½ inch because that looks a lot better. So 0.5, I can type it in, I click OK. Notice all of my other formatting remains the same. All I did was I changed all the default tabs on the entire page. So that's one area that we can have. So again, this is going to allow us to adjust intervals between our tab stops. We can move text to custom tab stops. We can clear them. We can do all these things either by utilizing the ruler up here, or we can come in down here and we can click on the format and open up the tabs, and that will open that up for us. So tabs, of course, very important. They can definitely shape the way our paragraph formatting looks like. So the other thing that we wanted to look at deals with columns. How do we create columns? Because that's something else that, it might be thought of as a paragraph formatting tip, but really your columns is really just a block of text that has its own margins. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll tell you what, I opened up this document too. Now, before I started the video, I went ahead and I typed out the Gettysburg Address. Yes, I know. I actually went out to Google and I copied it and put it here. But, it makes it sound good if I say I typed this out by memory. 7 years our forefathers brought upon this continent a new nation. And you can see we have all of this. Well, let's say I want to put this into columns where I want my page to have one column here and another column here. Well, how do I do that? Well, it's quite simple. All I need to do is come up to here and I can either utilize the columns on the format box if I have that available. Right now I just have line spacing, but sometimes you can have columns included as one of your buttons, or you just come up to Format, click on here, and click Columns. Now when you do that, it's going to bring up a dialog box that says how many columns do you want to have, and do you want them to be 1, 2, 3? Do you want it to be more to the left, more to the right? Or do you can add about as many columns as you want. And what are the width and spacing that you want for it? So let's say I want, because these are presets, and of course you can change some things. Let's say I wanted to put this into 2 columns, where I have the 2 columns laid out right here. And they'll say, okay, you want these 2 columns. Okay, your first column, your width will be 2.75 inches with a space of a ½ inch between it. And again, this is if you do equal column width. you can change that by deselecting, and then you can say I want my second column to be 2.75. And if I add another column, it will automatically try to put them the same at 1.78 inches, but you can change it. You can say I want this one just to be 1 inch wide, and then it will adjust for the next column over to the right because I'm not doing equal column width. And if I'm like, that doesn't look good, I do want equal column width, just simply select on it. It will automatically give you the correct width so you can have equal. Some people also like just to kind of delineate it a little bit. You can place a line in between the columns so that way people know, oh, these are the columns. Maybe you're doing some kind of newspaper or newsletter. You can use that. You can also do, quite a bit. Now, here's where a lot of people say, now, does that mean my whole entire document is going to be like that? Well, maybe not. See, it's where it says down here, apply to the whole document. I can come up here and say, you know what? I just want to go this point forward. So I can go from this point forward. I can come to one area. Maybe I have a cover page that is, just one letter. You have a cover letter on your document, and then the next page is where you start doing this. Well, you can do the cover letter, move down to the next page, and then say from this point forward, I want 3 columns. So let's go ahead and remove the line between them, and we'll go with 2 columns. That's a typical thing. I click OK, and you'll notice that it says, all right, 7 years ago, and it goes down the page, and it adds it to 1 column. Now, what happens, though, when I decide, that's, I want to use this font, I want to make it a little bit bigger, so I come up here to font, I got my Arial font, and I decide to make it 16 so everybody can read this. Well, look what happened. Now, it goes down 7 years ago, our forefathers brought upon this nation, continent, all that, and it scrolls down, and then, once it hits the bottom of the page, it comes up here to the top. So my column really now has its own margin. Now by default, we remember Word will put text in 1 column, but we say we want it in 2 columns, so it looks like a newspaper or a magazine. Now again, you can do this, and by the way, earlier I said that the columns button would be down here in Format. It's actually up here on the standard. I was just looking and I remembered it's up here on the standard column. So you can click on this as well and choose 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns, and choose as many as you want for that. Okay, so that's where that button is if you wanted to change it. Now, one thing you might say, okay, I went in here and I want to change this a little bit. Can I change it? Absolutely. You can format it anywhere you want. You can either do it again by clicking on the Format columns and bringing it up and changing it right here, or see up here, I have the ability to click and drag any one of these and move it to where I want it to be. So, this is the different ways and areas that we can move our columns and our indents and all the things. We can do different margins for different parts of the column. So in this case, because I have it set at equal, I would need to go into Format, Columns, take off the equal column width and click OK. And see now, notice I can move the bar. Earlier on I was just showing you because it changes the arrow, but because I had locked it as a equal distance or equal width, it wouldn't let me move it. So I had to go back and change that. So if you're like, hey, Chris showed me I can move this, why isn't it moving? It's because you go to Format, go to Columns, and say, oh yeah, I have the equal column width set, and that's why. So this is a pretty cool feature, and this again gives you the ability to adjust the margins, and you can put tab stops. Notice you have tab stops here. I still have that capability. If I wanted to add a decimal one here, I can still do that and just add it on. It will only apply to this column. It won't apply over here on this column. So that's a way that we can add different types of formatting for different columns. You get your own margins, you get to play around with them like you want to. So now we have the Gettysburg Address in 2 columns, and you can see again, based on our paragraph and where we have our margin set, it's going to place everything where we need it to be. So very cool stuff, and this of course is how we can handle our columns, and we saw how we could do our tabs. So what we accomplished here was to take a look at 2 areas that can affect not only where your paragraphs or how they're formatted, which you can do with these tab stops. We can use, remember, our left tabs, we can use our right tabs, our decimal tabs, our bar tabs, all those things to help align our text By simply clicking on that tab key, we can push our text over to align to that tab stop, or we can create these tab stops that we can move to. We also, of course, have columns, which is kind of their own little animal. They're the ability to take bodies of text or body text and simply separate it on a page into different columns. We can change some of the margins for those columns, and we can apply it either to the whole entire document, or we can go halfway through and apply it going forward. We can also then make changes accordingly. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.